Okay, so anybody who's ever gone into the members area of the PM Forum website, the same password will still apply. They can also change it in the usual way, but that they then find content. I'll show you in a minute how that works. They then browse, read, watch, or listen, usual stuff. The bit that when we're starting to move away from rather passive knowledge is when we're encouraging people to actually answer a few questions as to what that particular piece of content did for them. What are they going to do differently? Possibly what are they going to skills gaps is that identified, or anything else that they think might change their behavior. That's all structured within it. At that point, we hope they will add a task, something they actually want to do. It's their task, they own it, but that will lead to that, or they could link it to an existing task. They will also hopefully link that task to a goal, because a task that has no goal is fairly aimless. Once they've actually completed the task, we hope they will then evaluate the impact it had. And in due course, hopefully enough tasks will have been completed in connection with a goal to complete that goal. Because the way we see it is the purpose of the whole exercise is to complete business goals on behalf of the business. Everything else is just part of that process, whether it's finding content, reading, watching, thinking, having an insight, doing a task. What really matters is completing the goal. And in the leadership role, you will know what those goals look like. So it'll help you make sure that your team deliver on the goals that you want them to deliver. So that's the sort of very, very simple summary of what the actual journey is for the learner. We call it the personal page. You can see at the top. So this is the place that everybody will go to view any item of content that they wish to see. And they will, when they first go in, they will get a welcome page, which looks a bit like this. Lots of context to read. Don't worry about that now. But the more important point is that they can then do useful things straight off. So they can update their event mailing list. So all the various regions that the forum holds meetings, do you want to make sure that you've got your mailing lists up to date? There's a members guide, which is with a nice long index, so you don't get lost, but it's about 30 pages. So it's not easy reading, but it does contain everything that you need to know about the platform. You can go and check out the latest issue of the magazine. We know not everybody gets a hard copy, so this is a quick way to see the digital version. And then if you haven't done anything on the platform before, what we would encourage you to do is to use one of these personae, and we've created 10, marketing, BD, comms, but also one for associates, because the platform is absolutely not just intended for marketing teams, but for those, particularly maybe the senior associate level, who suddenly realize they need to find out where the work comes from and why. And you can choose one of these, or it could be you're at an assistant level and you want to see what stuff execs are reading as part of your career growth and project. There's various, anyway, you choose a persona. I will just choose marketing assistant, quite at random, and you go away and you create it, and it will show on this page in front of you, just like this. And a little bit like Amazon, when you go and do an Amazon search, you comes back with hundreds and hundreds of items. So you can then say, well, let me just look at the ones in the last 5 years. And we're down to 30. And let's, somebody who doesn't go to only go to 4 5-star hotels with TripAdvisor. So I'll go for 4-star and up. So I'm down to 3. So 230 has suddenly come down to 3. So you've got a way of flexing that. Let's clear it, because 3 is probably not very useful. 30 is probably a better number. So you've got a way of actually just finding each of these items, content items. You've got a Google style thing at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, up to any number, can have thousands. But this is, if you like, step 1 is just finding content. As well as finding content through a structured route, what we also find is that people at the more senior level possibly don't go on training courses, or they don't like the idea of being told what to do by L&D, or they hate tram tracks. They just want to browse. They want to just sort of shimmy around within the particular content. So we give them the possibility of what we call free flow. So for example, say, okay, let's have a look. So find another article. So here's one about the client's shoes, written by Amy, who leads our Southeast region. So that looks quite interesting. I'll bookmark that one. And here's another one. Let's see what that one looks like. Wider business skills. And oh yeah, okay. Read Emily's one. And here's another one on the client service and satisfaction. Now, what you may not have picked up is that this client service and satisfaction, which is the skill set, is pretty much reflected on most of those. If it's different, it means it's a piece of content that goes across the border between the two skill sets. So you're not completely constrained, echo chamber. You can go outside. Anyway, I don't like to look at a picture of that one, so I'll go for another one. Oh, actually, that one looks quite interesting. And then when you finish that, you can just say, okay, I've got 3 bookmarks. Let's go and have a look at them. There's the live one and there's 2 others, or you can wander up the top and say, let's have a look at the 3 bookmarks in the same way that we saw our other list. So everything brings you back to the same page with the same, with different bits of content, depending on how you got to them. So whether you've gone through a structured search or whether you've gone in and say, let's go and find a search term like content marketing, excuse me. And all of a sudden you've got 61 results. So lots of different ways to find content. Once you've found it, I don't know if you've noticed, but there are 2 little colored, a red and a blue icon sitting on associated with each one. And the default position is 0, but every now and again you find one which has got an extra icon. And that means, and it's got some points, you probably can't see, but I think it's 7 and 10. I can't quite read, but you can always open up if you want to see. Yeah, 7 and 10. And this shows how they have actually gained that content. So let me show you now what that means in practice. So if I was to go and open up the little icon, the extra icon, this shows their actual evaluation. So it said it was somewhat relevant to them. They would be neutral if they were asked about it. I put in a note which doesn't mean anything. So this is my data, and they have won 7 points and 10 minutes for doing that evaluation. If we decided that actually, no, it's actually quite highly relevant, and they would speak highly about that being asked because they really like it, and they want to do a full evaluation, then we can then say, what did they expect to learn from it? What insights did they have from the ideas in it? What new skills will they seek to acquire, or skills gaps will they seek to fill? So we're moving down that chart I showed you along the journey. We can also, we've already put a note in, but I think that's pretty rubbish. So I'll get rid of that note. And it then says, okay, I can then link it to, let's say I want to link it to this particular task. So I just link it, and I can also add, I'm going to add a new task as well. So here's the name of the task, and then there's a description and what does success look like, all the sort of questions you'd expect around tasks. You can find out which skill set it belongs to. Doesn't have to be marketing strategies. It could be a different one because the task might not be linked. It might be, the idea might have come from marketing strategies, but live in a different place. That's not an impossibility at all. Or it could be an idea that came from a, excuse me, a different type of task. It could be from a meeting with your manager, or it could just be thinking time, or, daydreaming, they used to call it at school. It doesn't really matter. There's lots of, in other words, once you're in the task space, it's very flexible. And then if you want to say, oh, I'm not really, yeah, it's important, but I need some help. So who would it be helpful to? It could be your L&D team. It could be a mentor, a trainer, somebody, your departmental leader. It doesn't really, there's lots of different. So that kind of triggers the ability to build a project group of people who are going to help you deliver this task. And then if you wanted to, you could then actually go further on and add a goal in, and you could, the name of the goal, the description, the priority, and the sort of things you'd expect from the goal. So I won't actually save the task because that's a bit it's sort of, but if I just go back here to reflection 1, and I'll just put test. That's a bit boring, but it's quick. Test. Nobody else sees this, by the way, so it's all good. These are my comments to myself, effectively. And then I say log the time and the points. All of a sudden now I've gone up from whatever it was, 7 and there, to 18 and 26. And it says if I did a comment in, I could save a few more, but I said, no, I'm okay. I'll be fine with that. And then I just log and close. So the outcome of that is now when I go back to where I came from, this particular one which we were looking at, I think it was this one, but now has on it extra points. So it's very flexible. So you can do it at the beginning, you can do it as you go along, you can go back later, make some changes. But what you're doing in all cases is trying to go down that chart I showed you. In other words, how do I move from relatively passive content, which I've got to go and find and do something with, to what am I going to do about it? What task am I going to do different? How does that link into a goal? So following it all the way down that chart. On the left here, you'll see a thing called performance tracker. Performance tracker, it's January, it's not very much going on, so I'll do year to date because that's a slightly more meaningful period for me. So it tells me that I have done so many actions, and each time you do something associated with a piece of content, it's an action, so it's quite a big number. It tells me that I have spent 13.8 hours against a target of 30. It tells me that my engagement is 44% and I've gained 1,173 points. And each of these links somewhere. So if I take the target, for example, I can now get rather a busy page. So let's just simplify it a bit, just close that down, and we'll just look at skill sets. All of a sudden, getting to the level that one can look at and work on. Okay, there isn't much time year to date. Surprise, surprise, calendar year, January, it's quiet. I'm looking to do this much in the year, and this is how much I've done. So let me just explore that in a bit more depth. So let me just see how that works out. So I've got 180 hours, my rolling year target, which is 10 on soft skills and 10 on hard skills. And you'll see that the ones at the top are in the sort of what I call top level. So they're just round sum because 6-9 months out, I don't know. But if I'm looking for the closer period, I can say, okay, in January, I'm expecting to spend 1 hour on this area and 1 hour on that area and 1 hour on the other area. And then if you at any stage want to know more about it, you just literally click on your there, and it goes away and it finds all the articles associated with leadership. So there's 100 articles on leadership. So what you've got is that ability to quite quickly say, there's a gap. Okay, let's go and get some content that will help me fill that gap. Moving back, we were on here. You can get to it through here, but you can also get to it through target activities, through the chevron, same place, same thing. And you can do the same around the content. So you can say, okay, I want to mix content and goals. So here, I want to spend time doing a third of my time doing content, but 2/3 doing fulfilling tasks and goals. And that's fine. And you can see that as well. So it's a way that any individual can actually set targets looking into the future if they want to do it that way. They also get to see a logged activity page, which looks at where are they up to date. So again, let's do year to date and maybe just look at skill sets again, simplify it. And this will say, okay, you've done soft skill sets, hard skill sets. But the nice thing here is that you can then say, okay, let's have a look. Let's do the soft ones. Doesn't really matter. Do leadership and content. And then you can see quite quickly what it is that you actually evaluated by going from there directly to the evaluation, which again has got garbage in because I'm doing it for tests, but you could see how that could be used in a useful context. And then you update and close and you go back to where you came from. So in a context of a review, you can be looking at, okay, how much time has people spent? What's the mix between hard and soft skills? And then drill down actually quite quickly into what they've actually done and what they've looked at and what their comments were. So a lot of transparency around that. In addition to the ability to see what people have been doing, we have engagement. And you recall that one of the biggest challenges that we've identified is people not being engaged. Very busy, lots going on, I don't have the time or whatever. So we built a very simple, but I think quite powerful tool to allow people to see across these different metrics, some of which are things like, let's make it simpler. So I'll do the on-platform ones. So the extent, are they getting a hard copy of the magazine? Yes or no? Have they been to 2 events a month? And that includes webinars. Have they attended training courses? And then also we can look at the on platform, which sort of follows the same slide that I showed you. So in other words, How many times have they logged in? How many evaluations have they done? How many tasks have they completed? Have they set the targets? How many learning points they got in the month? Have they created playlists? So the sort of kind of making sure that they are actually flowing all the way through. And then at the end of the day, what's the engagement score? Now, if I went to this month, I haven't done much in January. I am looking at quite low period number of times, 0.33. But if I go year to date, then I have spent 13.0 hours. So you can you can do any other. So the period's quite useful. This is something. This is the members area. So anybody can do this. Anybody can see that. We also have what we call a Premier membership, and there is a slight cost involved in that. And one of the things that will happen if you have a Premier membership is they will be able to see by clicking on the show totals. And I'm running this off my phone at the moment because my main line is down, by the way, so I'm sorry if it's a bit slow. It says it's unstable, which isn't very helpful. But anyway, so this is me. I'm in 2 departments, and here's the firm data. And what I can see is that I am slightly ahead of my peers in my other peers in my department, and we're quite well ahead of the firm as a whole. So that's not a bad place to be. But if it was the other way around, you might see things differently. Again, you can simplify things just by looking at it over this level. So this is something that everybody can see. When you move to the platform manager, there's a special icon here, drop down with goes to platform manager, and then you have a page called engagement and outcomes. All of a sudden now you're beginning to build a picture across your team as to which are the people who are highly engaged and which are the ones who are less engaged, just by looking at those green borders. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 9 of them, so each is 11%, so hence 55. So, and we've kind of set it up so that 75% is green, red is 37.5, amber in between, to traffic lights. So here you've got a situation with 5 members you're looking at, and could be all of them, it doesn't matter. We've actually got 9 people in PMI. So deliberately set up so some people are more engaged than others. But what we've got here is a very simple snapshot across the department. And in this case, it's everybody in PMI. So if we said just want to look at department 2, it leaves you with 3 people. So you then have a different conversation. And as I mentioned before, you have this ability to then show the totals as well. And the way that works is you've got the same people before, you've got department 2, but you can now say for department 2, you've got total implement learning points. And then you've got what we call free flow 1, 2, and that's all about actual hours and actual investment. In other words, we're actually calculating the amount of cost associated with that particular thing, or you could say actual profit foregone. This is an area that's being worked on literally today. So I know that those numbers will appear. They were there this morning. He's working on them as we speak. But that's why we haven't launched the Premier service yet, of which this is part. But I think the point it shows is that you can actually measure a whole bunch of different things: budget hours, target hours, actual investment, rolling years, etc., in a way that helps you then manage that, what the costs are in being incurred associated with all this learning activity that's going on. And you can also look at the averages across the department and then against the firm as a whole. So from the manager's point of view, you get quite a lot of information, and then you can switch it from, I don't know, year to date to, say, last month, December, or this month where there's not much going on, because it's been that type of month. I think it's done it. So this my screen is a bit slow today. I think it's okay. The other thing you can do is kind of, if we go back for a second to everybody, and let's say Nadia's left, it happens to be true, well, sort of true. So I can say, okay, she is remove her as a leaver, and I can hit go. A little message saying, are you sure? You say, no, I'm not, so I don't really want to do that. But equally, the other options, so I can allocate people to internal meetings. So I can kind of say, okay, this bit of content is only to people who attended or participated in a particular meeting. Doesn't need to be seen by anybody else. So this is how you put those people into that group. You can give people grades. They're your grades. You choose what them to work within your own firm, the way that you organize your org structure. You can allocate people to teams. I'll just show you that one. So you could say, for example, it's a department and it's department 3, and I want to add them in, and you hit go and it's done it for you. So Nadia would then go become a member of department 3. If she was already in there, it would do nothing. So it wouldn't throw it wobbly or anything. You can also allocate them to goals. So you take all the various goals that have been selected by various platform managers, which, as you can see, is all about test, 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 test. And you hit go. And then that goal is copied into Nadia's business goals area. You can decide who you want to add and firm any content, because often you don't want everybody to add stuff in. So you say, okay, only these people can add content in, and that's quite useful. I showed you to remove levers. You can share playlists. You select a group of content, and then you give it the name, a playlist with its name, random walk specials, whatever, and then you hit go, and that is then shared with whoever you've highlighted here. And then lastly, you can upgrade to what we call premium membership. And what that does is it gives you an idea of how many people you have. You put that data in, how many members you have, licenses, ordering, etc., etc. So that's kind of the if you want to start using the Premier membership as and when it becomes available, which is probably about a month away, I think. So the flexibility you have on as a platform manager is really quite simple and quite extensive. And the way you set it up is really simple as well. There's just half a dozen tabs. So you put the grades in that work for your firm, the way you're used to it. You put your divisions in, you put your departments in, any project teams you have in mind. And that could be if people come together to help this individual achieve their goals. Any internal events. I mentioned about allocating people. This is how you actually create the event itself. And then you have the hours and rates by country, which I'll just make a little bit simpler. So if I said, the way we see it is that you have, let's go 2024. Okay, so we have created within the system 5 levels of seniority, and they're self-selecting. Anybody can choose what level they are, and it doesn't really worry us. But what this allows people to do is say, okay, across the firm as a whole, 15 hours, 2 days is about right per month. And of that, we would like so much to be in the free flow space. In other words, people do it themselves. And one would suspect at the more junior level, only 20% to be free flow, the other 80% to be around playlists. And then the other thing you can show on this page as well is what we call the grades. So I've made up 5 grades, grade 1 to 5. I think a big 4 might have 15. It varies from firm to firm. And then what are the direct costs associated with that grade? And then what is and it could be notional, it could be an actual charge out rate. Obviously, fee earners have actual charge out rates. Internal departments often have notional charge out rates. And if not, you can kind of make them up just to see the point. But that's the profit foregone by people spending time on training rather than on doing delivering services to whoever their clients may be, internal, external. So this is what we use, and then calculating what's the cost and the investment and what's the profit foregone associated with all the time that is being spent on the platform by individuals, added into departments, divisions, and up to the firm level. So it's quite a comprehensive way of checking out what's going on. But that's it. That's the total setup, literally. And most of that's probably one-off. You don't change your grades that often. You don't change your divisions that often. It just doesn't really work that way. The only one that probably comes up more often is project teams, because they're more ad hoc. And then you just build teams with people that you want to be in that team. Kind of what I've tried to do is show you the more or less the journey that everybody would go through, and then how that works in practice, and then what are the elements that the platform manager has to be able to find out what's going on, see who are the high performers, and then track activity and intervene, obviously, as appropriate. Existing PM POM password, which you can always change if you want to. will give you access to the platform. You go to the PM Forum website, it's on the homepage on the top right. The feedback we get from L&D teams is they are being sold platforms by various people all the time, because at the end of the day, lots of people are out there developing platforms. Most of those platforms, in our experience, have a lack of content. In other words, they give you a place where you can put your content in, and that can work fine. But we find that having the content in already in the way that we have done it, and it is unique specialist content, means we can integrate it in a way that other systems find difficult. Second thing that we find people find favorable about it is this ability to enable the departmental manager or the team leader to actually manage their people through it. Most of the other systems, from what we can see, they give you an access code. You go into some place, you do whatever you're going to do around soft skills, hard skills, and it's usually very good quality content. I'm not suggesting it's not for a minute. And then some sort of report comes back saying these people went on it and this was the sort of happy sheet or this was the satisfaction. But that's all the leader gets. Whereas on this one, they're getting a very much more granular understanding, and you can drill down to individual, what people said about a particular piece of content on their reflection questions. So really getting to see a very in-depth exactly how this person has related to the content. And then the third thing is the focus on business goals. Our whole emphasis on how do we help you achieve your business goals? Because from our point of view, everything else is secondary to that. The content, the tasks, everything is leading you to completing goals, because otherwise it's like a tweet. It has a shelf life about 0.0001 second, like an idea. They come and go. So what we're trying to do is say, okay, we've got something here where you can actually see how people are moving towards their business goals. My general advice is identify 2 or 3 people who are already fairly involved. It could be maybe going through the I don't know, attending events, whatever it happens to be, but 2 or 3 people who are really involved with the forum and quite interested, get them as a little pilot to use it for a week or 2, then get them to come back with their input and then work from there. I think that 2-step works better, is my experience. You will find there is a platform manager guide, and in it there is a guide as to how ways you might want to implement it as well. There's a member guide, which is sort of how it works, but then there's a platform guide saying, platform manager, these are some things that you can do. One of a couple of pages on how best we recommend that you implement it. And